Welcome everyone to today's podcast. My name is Paul. I'm a happy recovered addict. I live in Scotland and I've been joined today by Eden. Do you want to say hello?
Hello guys, hello everyone. My name is Eden and I'm an addict. I'm of no fixed abode, but that's nowhere near as depressing as it sounds. And I was born in Yorkshire in the UK.
Good stuff. Glad you're here, Eden. Thanks for joining us. And Martin.
Hello, Martin here, recovering addict. So thank you for having me again. I'm very grateful to be taking part in this step 10, and I'm looking forward to today. Thank you very much, and I hope the listeners get as much out of this as we certainly are doing. Thank you.
I suppose we could call this the Northern Podcast, given the place of our birth, because we're all from that wonderful region of England.
Yeah.
So, well, that's it. Well, it's bound to make complete sense then, isn't it? You know.
Well, at least everyone will understand what we say.
Yeah. Because no one talks proper like we do. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So look, the topic of today's podcast is step 10, which is we continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, we promptly admitted it. So if you've just happened to click on this video on YouTube or WhatsApp or Skype or in the rooms.com, there is obviously a series of videos, steps 1 through 9. There is an introduction to Cocaine Anonymous. There is a video on sponsorship. So I'd heartily recommend those two. I'd heartily recommend getting along to a face-to-face meeting or a Zoom meeting. And if you do go to a Zoom meeting, I'll be putting up a list of Zoom meetings towards the end of the podcast. You don't need to put your camera on. You don't even need to talk if you don't want to. Just come along and listen in. If you'd like to share or put your camera on, that's completely fine. So please like and subscribe. Any questions you have about recovery, the steps, sponsorship meetings, put them in the comments and we'll do our best to get them answered for you. So without further ado, before we get into the step, so in general terms, recovery from active addiction, program of action, what would you like to share with our listeners, Eden?
Well, in general terms, about recovery, I think that, my message about that would be a fairly standard one, in that, I think if I start by saying, as of today, which is the 7th of August, 2021, at the point of this recording, this Wednesday, I will be 2,000 days sober, clean and sober, and what that means is that I've still got an awful lot more experience in taking drugs than I do in recovery. But that is because I was out there doing what I was doing for a very long time, and I bounced along the bottom really for quite a while. I kept dipping my toe into looking at recovery, seeing if I could figure it out, going to the odd meeting, for years and years and years. And then it was obviously knocking on the door of 5.5 years ago was the first time I got a real sponsor and was broken enough to surrender and listen and follow the suggestions. And that was so since I immersed myself properly in the recovery process, I really haven't had the desire to drink or use, and so I continue to do that today. If that's I think that's probably enough. Yeah.
Epic. Thank you so much, Eden. Good stuff. I'll just chime in briefly. So, recovery, freedom from that obsession to use, like yourself at the present moment thus far, it's been a long time since I've drank or used mood altering substances. And, I haven't had the desire to, and, I've learned a lot of stuff around these rooms, a lot of practical advice, a lot of knowledge, a lot of understanding around addiction, the threefold problem: spiritual disconnect, mental obsession, and the physical allergy where I can't stop putting the next drug in or the next drink in. And I just want to say a few things. A drug is a drug, whether it's alcohol, heroin, crack, coke, prescription pills. A drug is a drug, and of course I'm not against anyone taking anything by prescription from the doctor as prescribed, but you know, a spade is a spade. You know what I mean? And I didn't realize that I chopped and changed substances. You know, the last thing I got clear was alcohol. It wasn't a great amount. It wasn't spirits, but it became a daily thing. It became a solution. It was self-medicating to feelings, to disenfranchisement, to just feelings, I suppose, of just not being happy with self and life as was, you know. And I've discovered every day that if I suit up and show up and get into the solution, Eden and Martin, that generally days are manageable, life is doable, life is okay, you know. And furthermore, there's no drama or consequences. In fact, on the contrary, which is a wonderful byproduct. No consequences. And life's manageable, you know, and Paul's reasonably content. So that's enough for me. Martin, what would you like to share with our listeners today?
Well, slightly different from yourself in Eden at this specific moment in time. I would say factually that I am a lot less in terms of recovery than both of yourselves, type of thing. I'm still within my first year now. I have observed and analysed people talking, which are from meetings, the online meetings in particular that I take part in, that the desire to use and the thoughts to use will lessen over time. Now, I am personally finding that. However, from my opinion and my mindset, the thoughts to use will still creep back in on a weekly basis, type of thing. They used to be like on a daily basis, then every couple of days. No, I would say it's about like on a weekly basis. So just keeping on top of that and ensuring that I try to follow the steps. You know, I mean, we're doing step 10 today, but try and follow the steps and keep them in my focus and in my mindset is the winning formula for me. And I think that if I take, which I have done previously, I'll be honest, if I take my foot off the gas and I don't potentially pray to my higher power, be of that what it may to anybody else, and you know, ask my higher power to remove my character defects and my shortcomings, and particularly what we're looking at today, the inventory. If I don't do these things, then I'm 100%, from my personal perspective, more inclined to fall the wrong way and be more likely to relapse. But you live and learn, don't you, I suppose. So that's where I am at the moment, and I'm learning that if I do take my foot off the gas and don't follow the routine that I'm in at the moment, which I'm finding this routine quite happy to do, and I'm a man who likes routine, so this is working for me. It's taken a little bit of time to get to this situation, but as long as I'm following the steps diligently, I think it's a much better place and better life that I'm living now than I have been in the past. So thank God, literally and metaphorically, thank God for recovery and the steps.
That's great. Thanks, Martin. So I just crossed my mind. I thought I'd do something slightly different from what we normally do on the podcast. We normally now get straight into step in question, but I just thought perhaps it might be helpful for our listeners if we just gave a minute or two each around the 12 steps and the actual process as a whole. You know, I love what you share, Martin. I think that was very astutely shared, and you know, it is a process. You know, so. You know, I think it's Eden's turn next rather than mine. So what do you want to share in general terms about the 12 steps?
Yeah, by all means. So, you know, I was very fortunate that, you know, I got the right sponsor for me. And, you know, there are many different styles of going through the steps, although of course the mechanic is the same. I suppose it would be like you know, you can have the same engine and chassis of a car, but you can put different aesthetic panels over the top of it, and by and large, you know, you get the right person for you if you you know, stick around enough for that to happen. And you know, one thing, that my sponsor was one of those guys who's very, very spiritual and very, very connected and very kind and very, very tolerant and but also doesn't won't take any wouldn't take any nonsense. He wouldn't let me waffle my way out of basically thinking my way into trying to adjust the program to suit myself, which would not work. He said to me that I've got good news for you and I've got bad news for you. The good news is I know exactly how you can recover from your addiction. The bad news is I only know one way of how you can recover from your addiction. And so that was basically him saying to me that, follow this stuff. It's all written down for us. Just do what is there. So obviously people can go back and listen to the other podcasts around that stuff. So it starts off with the admittal of the powerlessness, seeing that seeing where we're at, getting honest about that stuff. And seeing that reliance upon ourselves, of us trying to manipulate and change things and orchestrate the world to suit ourselves has failed and will continue to fail if we continue along that way of thinking, and to give it up, and just to say, well, look, to admit defeat in that way, and then start looking for what am I going to do then? So what am I going to do to change and to substitute that way of thinking and to get out of this cycle? This cycle that I've been stuck in for so long, that I don't know how to get out of, because the problem for me is that I was always promising myself that I was going to sort myself out, but years and years and years went by and I just wasn't doing it. So the evidence of my promises to myself were not coming to fruition in my own life. And so it was getting more frustrating and it was getting more desperate and it was getting and I was feeling weak and a failure and emasculated and all of that negative stuff that comes with, that powerlessness. I could not draw up sufficient enough power to be able to stop using or control my using so that it appeared to be in any way manageable. So I'd lost, I'd lost the power of choice, not only over how much I drank and used, but also when I started drinking and using. And that's what makes me an addict. Is I could decide that I wasn't going to drink and use today. And by after lunchtime, I'd be out of it. But I decided when I got up that morning that it wasn't going to happen. And yet it did, and yet it did, and yet it did, and yet it did. So I had to surrender all of that stuff, and I had to surrender to then decide to work these steps. And there's only me that can do that. My sponsor could explain it to me as much to his blue in the face. I had to decide that I was going to do it, and so I did. And just thankfully, I was at a point in my life where, it was either do the steps or die. That was it for me. That was the way it was going to go. And as it was, I pulled back the covers that morning and I was still alive. I decided to do this. And so then, I got that connection, started to nurture that connection with, a higher power. That was difficult, only in that I had to go looking. I really had to search for it. I had to go through the prayer and meditation processes, even though I had no idea what I was looking for. I had no idea what I wanted. I had no idea what I was expecting to get out of it. I had no idea whether it was going to work. That's not the point. The point is that I did it, and I did it despite basically my lousy attitude towards the possibility of there being a higher power. So I got into that prayer and meditation stuff. I started to do it, and I started to do it on a daily basis. And it was only after doing it on a daily basis for a period of time that I then realized that even though I didn't really know what I was looking for, and I didn't know what it was I was supposed to be doing, and I didn't know whether I was doing it right, I'd stopped drinking and using. And it was only after, I don't know, let's say coming on to 60 days that I kind of went, oh, okay, so whatever it is that I've started to do here, there's something here. There's something here. And then I started to get a little bit of faith. And then I started to feel like, I started to be able to encourage myself, because I did not believe I was going to do it. I didn't believe when I came into recovery, I would not have put my own money on me. I would not have put my own money on me getting this. I thought it was a lost cause, and then obviously the step 4 was extremely revealing. Step 5 was incredibly freeing. Step 6 was one again. I had to kind of really look at what what all of that stuff was. Who am I? Who am I, and what do I need to work on? Then and then the step 6 and 7 is where that psychic change happens, where you really kind of start to believe in it. The step 8s and 9s is where you start to kind of then put right, or try and put right the things that make amends and all of that stuff, which you'll have down. And then we're up to step 10, 11 and 12, which is then into the maintenance steps, which we will then I'll touch upon that when we start to talk about step 10. I hope I haven't gone on too long there. Is that all right?
No, that's brilliant. That's very informative. Very, very good indeed. And yeah, I think for me, we do this as a fellowship. That's the beautiful thing about a support network, the power of society, the power of connection, the shared experience, And it's a given that the steps are we. The first steps is we admitted we were powerless over addiction. Our lives have become manageable. We admitted we're powerless over cocaine and all the mind-altering substances in our lives, had become unmanageable. So it's that honesty and admission, isn't it? And for me, it's a thorough realization of the consequences, and I've heard lots of things. I'm sure you have, Eden and Martin, over the years in the rooms, and it's very much, for me, I've heard things said like, if you've got a proper step 1, if you've really, really done a proper step 1, you won't want to use again. You won't want to use again. And these are things I get to contemplate today. And instead of who's got, is it any good? Will it be real? Will they be able to give me? Will they be able to give me an extra one? Will I get a bit off? Will the cops be there? What about the electric bill? I get to ponder questions such as, well, if I really do acknowledge the consequences of addiction, does that empower me to stay clean? And I think it does. But I think the mystery is power, God's power and God's wisdom through and over everything, and some of the mysteries of recovery. And Martin, when I look back at getting clean again, and if you're listening to this and you're still using, our message is hope and our promise is freedom. That any addict can quit using, lose the desire to use, and find a new way to live. So if you're struggling, you can do this. You can get free and you can stay free with these 12 steps of Cocaine Anonymous. So I can remember a time, I used to sit around, will I ever quit? We'd often have that conversation. Will we ever quit? And it was this idealism, one day, And, I call it the mysteries of recovery. Many of us were at the jumping off point where we can't imagine a future clean, and we can't imagine a future continuing to use. And, it has been said, there's a spanner for every nut in CA, so whether someone's a weekend binger or a daily, user from morning till night, whether they've used for a week or 30 years. And, I've met persons who fit all those descriptions. They can get free and stay free. That's the wonderful thing, So I guess I just want to say the importance of step 1. And we've got a podcast on step 1, but again, it's something you could talk about all day long, but it really is honesty. It's a real rugged look at the realities, the consequences, the powerlessness, the unmanageability of active addiction, and a honest realization of that empowers me, Eden, to say, well, and Martin, well, why on earth would I want to use a drug or a drink? Well, alcohol is a drug, but why would I want to use any drug given the reality of the consequences?
Yeah.
And anyway, come on in, Martin. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I've just been listening there quite diligently, and I think it's quite beautiful what you've how you both summarised what you've stated there. I would just like to say on on a personal level, I joined the online meetings on. It was around, I think, well, I believe it to be exact date of 2nd of February 2021, and I came because of step one. I admitted that was my time. I was powerless. I knew as soon as I had a drink, or not even necessarily an alcoholic drink at that point, the thoughts of using were daily. And as soon as I had cocaine, I would be there for days on end. And then I would feel absolutely appalling, affecting my mental health. Shockingly, I had no time for anybody else. I was just in depth in myself and I. And that's so when I came to my first meeting on the 2nd of February, I'd reached that point of powerlessness, which is step one. And I admitted everything was unmanageable in terms of my addiction. Now, we're on the 7th of August today. So a bit like a dash, 2nd of February till the 7th of August, you've got a dash in between those two dates. The dash to me is the ingredients of why I'm still here on the 7th of August, because the dash is all the work and the steps that I've done. There's things I've integrated in relation to those steps into my mindset and into my psyche that just weren't there beforehand, and it emphasizes the reason that I'm able to live clean and serene today. If I just point those out, first of all, it's the higher power, which for me is God. I turn my will and my life over to God, and I believe that He's a higher power than myself. Therefore, He has more control. And if I ask Him to just assist me and remove my character defects and my shortcomings, i.e., steps 6 and 7, then I'm making myself aware of them. And if I'm making myself aware of them, which I'm a part of God, it's then coming into my conscience. So this opened up my conscience, the groups, the CA meetings, as well as the emphasis on God and my higher power. My conscience then was about, in terms of mental, my mental self and mental well-being, it was all about I, and I'm not good enough. I want more. And I was impulsive. I wanted everything here now. I wanted it now. I've learned in relation to these steps and the big book and listening to other people to become more patient and put other people before myself. Spiritually, I had no spirituality. Meditation was absolutely non-existent, something I would never even consider trying. I didn't have the time to try it, which is quite ironic. Now it's something I use, which has opened, which kind of relates to step 11, giving me the mental balance. And then also my behaviors, my behaviors in the past, again, all revolved around myself and self-destruction. I mean, I remember as a young child, I would get told off and I would go to my room in self-pity and self-righteousness and not speak type of thing. And this would happen on later on in life, where I would hide away type of thing, or become vengeful, which were some of my character defects and my shortcomings. But again, just to go briefly, I mean, step 4 is where then I'd write down my wrongs, and it just brought an awareness to me, to my conscience, and to my higher power. And writing these things down and being aware of them in my mind just helps me on a day-to-day basis to stay connected. And I also now know on the 7th of August, if I'm thinking about myself and the ways that I can change, I can also share that with other people, and that then is helping other people to potentially to assist themselves and their development, which in turn is helping me. So the vicious cycle becomes a cycle of recovery, which is where I find myself today.
Well, that's beautiful and very well put. You know, I think also, you know, once I've got that realization of the consequences of active addiction, a proper realization of the consequences, then I get into a spiritual journey, which is personal to me. Whether I believe in Muhammad, Hindu, Jehovah, Yin and Yang, the Lord Jesus, the universe, it doesn't matter. We get to choose a God of our own understanding in these rooms, and we can get clean. We develop a spiritual journey, which often involves meditation and prayer, and the power of the fellowship, doesn't it? And we stay connected with each other, and suddenly we're trying to live on a spiritual basis instead of a chemical basis, and thus we continue to be free. So without further ado, let's get into the topic of today's podcast, which is step 10. We continue to take personal inventory and when we were wrong. And as usual on the screen, I've got a wonderful book called The 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, which can be bought for around 12 or 14 pounds off eBay or Amazon. And it's a really, really good book, and it's got half a dozen 8 pages on each of the steps and half a dozen 8 pages on each of the traditions. So I've got up on the screen, step 10 out of the 12 and 12. Now, just a quick word about the 12 and 12. Obviously, it's a book written by Alcoholics Anonymous. So whenever you see AA, you can substitute that for CA, or if you see alcohol, you can substitute that for drugs. And when you see alcoholic, you can substitute that for addict, etc., because addiction is alcoholism, and alcoholism is addiction, and sobriety is recovery, and a drug is a drug. So, that's been my experience. And the other book that we use is a book called Alcoholics Anonymous, which we often call the Big Book. And that's available for the same price. And both books can be listened to completely free or read 24/7 at aa.org. So without further ado, step 10. Eden, what's your thoughts?
Okay, well, I mean, let's assume that the people listening to this, this is their first experience around, the steps and having it explained, and given our experience and stuff. So, step 10 is the beginning of the maintenance steps. And so the maintenance steps of 10, 11, and 12 are, once we've gone through the mechanics and put everything, of what recovery is to us, and when we put right, our misdeeds in the past and corrected our thinking, is then how do I keep that? Once I've had that, because recovery up until, the end of step 9 can be phenomenal. It can be fantastic. It can be the most incredible experience of your whole life. And then, of course, it's like that power of prayer. The power of prayer is all very well and pious, but at some point, you've got to get off your knees and start living. And in order to do that, you've got to keep what you've got. And sometimes that is, and so to keep hold of it. And the reason that we because I guess, before I explain what it is that sometimes, particularly us who are can be quite resistant to change and can be quite headstrong as characters, as addicts, is why do I have to do it? Why do I have to do these things? Why do I have to stay in recovery? Why can't I just learn what I need to learn off you very intelligent people, and put right what I put right, and then not bother staying connected with addicts, and not bother with prayer and meditation? I've got clean, I know what I'm doing. And that's dangerous, because throughout my addiction, right, on a good day I was a liar and a fantasist. On a bad day I was a violent thief. Now, fortunately, those instances where I was a violent thief, like drink and drugs, didn't do that to me. Drink and drugs perverted my nature to make me into a violent thief. That bit is that it did. Fortunately, those instances that I did where I behaved in that way was so few and far between, and I'm really grateful for that, because when I did behave in do those things, the guilt, shame, and remorse and that I felt after doing those things was just made me want to kill myself, because I was disgusted with what I had become. So it wasn't like I kind of justified it and I was unaware of what I was doing. I was painfully well aware of what was happening to me, and I absolutely hated myself as a result of it. Now, the liar and the fantasist bit, I was a liar and a fantasist from the moment I could talk. So that was part of what was in me. So that is something that needed, like, you know, that I don't have that anymore. I'm now connected to the world. I'm now, you know, I now behave and think and feel in a way that I have my own self-respect, you know, and I know what I'm doing. And step 10 is a vital part of that, because if I don't maintain my recovery, then those problems, those thoughts and feelings that made me, you know, that means I'm a liar and a fantasist, they can come back. You know, they can return. So step 10 helps me to just spot where those kind of where those kind of little problems might return for me. Now, step 10 is all it is what's called nightly inventory. Okay, so I use an app called My Spiritual Toolkit, which there are others, but it's pretty good, and it just means it's pretty simple, right? And it just means that, obviously, like in today's world, everybody has their phone in their pocket all the time, and so I can do it wherever in the world that I am, and I don't have to, you know, carry a notepad or paper or whatever it is, right? So step 10 is a list of 10 questions. That's all it is. It's just 10 questions that I answer for myself on a nightly basis. Okay. And the first question is, when we retire at night, we constructively review our day. Were we resentful? Okay, now resentful comes up first as the first question, because it says in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that resentment is the #1 offender. It sends more addicts into relapse than anything else. Now, isn't that interesting? Because it doesn't say going to weddings where there's a free bar makes alcoholics relapse. It doesn't say that you know, going into the pub for Sunday lunch makes addicts relapse. It doesn't say that passing your old dealer's house makes addicts relapse. Resentment makes addicts relapse as the #1 offender, because once you've got it, once you've got that stuff. So it's like picking up a resentment and sticking with it. Now, this is the thing. So if I answer yes to that, then obviously I will then put down what the resentment is. And then when I forward it to my sponsor, he might not respond straight away. But if that resentment sticks around for a couple of days, I know where my attention needs to be, because I know what it is that I need to work on in order to make myself be free and peaceful and happy and get all of those promises that recovery gives us. So that's question 1. Question 2, were we selfish? So have I started in the selfishness? Have I started to try and use the world and use other people to suit my own ends? Or am I involved in a productive way, in the way that I should be, caring about you know, other people and what's going on in front of me, right? Were we dishonest? Okay, so again, have I started to, like, kind of, you know, keep little secrets, and have I started to you know, lie? Obviously, big one for me. You know, have I started to, you know, do that, be dishonest? Were we afraid? So normally fears come about, you know, by do we feel victimized in any way? Is somebody getting at us? Is there something that could potentially threaten you know, our, you know, the equilibrium of, you know, our emotional contentment? And that could be any list of things. Do we owe an apology? Okay, so that's the thing about when we were, the second part of step 10, when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So it's not about making sure that we behave and be perfect. I mean, to err is to be human. Okay, so it's not about, like, making sure that I write a perfect inventory and make me look like I'm doing brilliantly and spiritual all the time. It's about that honesty. So is there something where I've maybe treading on someone's toes? You know, have I, you know, whatever I've done, have I snapped at somebody who really didn't deserve it? You know, have I not been practicing patience, love, and tolerance in my dealings with, you know, family and friends and colleagues and, you know, stuff like that? Is there, because an apology, sometimes it can go an awful long way if you just acknowledge that stuff. It stops other people getting resentful towards you, and then when they get resentful towards you and they act upon it, you get resentful towards them. And whereas if you just apologize, and even if you think that they owe you an apology, if you apologize for your bit, then you've done what you're supposed to be doing. And if they carry on with negative behavior, well, it's their problem and not yours. So do I owe an apology? And then I'll keep that on. Have we kept something to ourselves which we should have discussed with another person at once? Now, this is, first and foremost, have I had a using thought? Have I had a craving? Because if you have a craving for something, or if you think you can get away with having a little drink or sneaking off for, a little use up somewhere and not telling anybody, you need to pick up the phone. Okay, so just pick up the phone and discuss it with someone. And if you haven't done that, and if you know that you've been thinking about, you've been scheming in a way to, wondering if you can do something that is negative, then you pick up the phone and voice it, grass yourself up. So that is if there's something that's potentially, it could, even though you haven't acted on it yet, if there's something that potentially could threaten your sobriety, so that's that one's that's question 6. Question 7: were we kind and loving towards all? So again, this is just a yes or no. Either yes you were or no you weren't. You know whether you were kind and loving towards everybody. Because if you weren't, it won't sit right with you. You'll have that kind of feeling, in between your rib cage and your stomach, where you're just like that. I didn't do very well today. Number 8: what could we have done better? So there's often, there's always something that you think, I wish I could have done that today. Now, this is really good, this one, because then when you scan back through your day, and if you haven't prayed or meditated, or you haven't gone to a meeting when you know you could have, that goes in that what could I have done better? Because then every day it will then come up, and you won't get out of the habit of the mechanics of recovery. Did I reach out today? Did I speak to a newcomer today? If you didn't, it goes on, what could I have done better? Because you can definitely do that. Because even if you've only got a week clean and sober, you can still ring someone who's got 2 days, because your experience of you will be able to help them, and they will be able to help you. And so that is something that is you can always look at, what could I have done better?
That's really, really good, Eden.
Hang on, 2 more. There's 2 more. So we've got 9. Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? And 10, or were we thinking of others, of what we could pack into our stream of life? Okay, so there you go. That is the list of, that's exactly what step 10 is. And you just yes, no, write your stuff down. You can grass yourself up. You can keep it on, and you can send it to your you can either send it to your sponsor regularly, or you can just do it if something comes up. There's loads of different ways of doing it. Follow your sponsor's advice. Come on in, Paul. I'm sorry, did I monopolize a bit there?
Yeah. We're going to get you your own podcast. No, that was absolutely epic beyond measure. That was real talk, and that's why we're here. So absolutely not. That was brilliant. There's not a great deal I can add to that. I guess I can just bring a slightly different perspective on things, and I love what you shared at the beginning, Eden. There's many ways to sponsor people, but the solution is the same. You mentioned body panels, and the engine and the chassis is the same, and I think I'd just like to talk briefly about the mechanics, the wording. God gave Bill Wilson great wisdom when he worded these steps, and we continue to take personal inventory. So it has in view the inventory that we've already been doing in the previous 9 steps. Now, the first inventory we do in the 12-step process is step 1, which I've already mentioned. We look at powerlessness, consequences, and unmanageability. Really. So that's the first inventory of the steps. Step 4 is the second inventory in the steps. It's actually a 3-fold inventory. I list every resentment I've ever had that I can remember, every fear I've ever had, and every harm I've ever done, ever. And then in step 5, I make a list of the exact nature of my wrongs. and that's another inventory. In step 6, I make a list of my character defects, and I make a list of my character assets. In step 7, I'm ready for these shortcomings to be removed. In step 8, I make another inventory, another stock taking. This time it's everyone that I owe an amends to, right? So that's another inventory. So we see that throughout the previous step 8, step 9 is the actual doing of step 8, where we go and make amends and try to put things right. So we see that inventory stock taking is a huge part of the steps, and that's what it means when we continue to take personal inventory. That's what it means. So we continue to take personal inventory. What that means in real terms for me, there's 3 types of inventory. There's spot check inventory, which I can do at any time. What is the will of God in this situation? What am I trying to get out of this situation? What can I do to improve this circumstance? What's the other person's desired outcome? What is the best thing to do in this situation? I can do a spot check inventory. If I find myself in an argument or a situation, I can take a moment, pause, whenever I'm agitated, and do a spot check inventory. The other type of inventory is the one that you very astutely explained, the nightly inventory, which also, from what I'm listening to you, even doubles as a spot check inventory as well. I personally prefer pen to paper of a night, and it's very similar to everything you've very roundly described. So there's no need for me to get into that. The third type of inventory is a mini inventory. Now, a mini inventory would be in the instance that you mentioned, if something cropped up regularly, if I was regularly having a similar resentment or the same resentment, or regularly having a similar fear, or regularly, hopefully not being harmful, or if I was regularly experiencing powerlessness or repeated consequences, if I felt I owed anyone an amends, if I'd harmed anyone with words or deeds, then I would do what's called a mini inventory. So it's a sheet that looks very similar to the sheets we use in step 4 and 8, but on it I can put anything in. Martin, I can put a resentment, a fear, a harm, an amends. I can list the person, the event, the circumstance, how it made me feel, how I think it makes them feel, what ought I to have done, what is the best outcome, and what is the solution in the last box. And that is a mini inventory. So Martin, what's your thoughts on step 10?
Well, again, beautifully put, I think, by both of you, Eden. I love that show. Very thingy, very in depth, and very informative. I think people will get a lot from that. And same for myself, Paul. I think we've been through the spot check inventory. If something just happens there and then at the time, it's just. I think I regularly have to deal with that. Some of my negative feelings, which will include jealousy type of thing, self-pity and arrogance, I will just try to think before I speak type of thing is a good action that I'm learning to take at this moment, which relates to the spot check. And then obviously in the evening, like you said, a daily review inventory, I will then try in the evening, potentially after a lot of the time after I've done a meeting, which will sometimes, say finish at 9:30, I'll sit down with a piece of paper and just write down the things that I potentially could have done better, and if I need to make amends. And then it's a little bit like emails. I receive quite a lot of emails, and then quite a lot of them are junk emails. Now, I enjoy the fact of deleting these emails. I feel it as a freeing up process, and a little bit on our TV as well. We can save certain things. I enjoy when I've watched them deleting everything, so that I'm back down to a low percentage that I've got in there, and a low percentage of emails, and only the ones that I want on there have I kept. And it's a little bit like that with my night inventory. I like to write everything down so I can deal with everything then. And then for me personally, it makes me feel better. I feel a lot lighter, and I'm able, which is a big part of it, able to sleep a lot better at night. I don't have things clustering and building up in my mindset, which are negatively impacting me, not just at that time, but then in the future and days onwards. So it's just a fact of dealing with it there and then, or even within the 24 hours, that just impacts me positively. I will reiterate the fact that it's not always easy. Sometimes I can become, self-righteous. Well, I don't deserve to. Why should I apologize for that? But even if I'm 99% sure that they don't deserve an apology, or that I'm in the right, I try then to just examine why they might have said something like that, why something like that might have been said, and try and play devil's advocate, because it does me no good to be holding that kind of resentment in my mindset. And I just move forward like that now, and then my mind is just perfectly clear, which helps me live, physically, mentally, and spiritually a lot better than I ever have done before I joined CA.
Well, that's beautiful, Martin, and I think that's a great way to come towards the end of today's podcast. Thank you so much. I just want to give a shout out to the meetings and speak about them for a moment, and then we'll each just chime back in for a minute or so on the topic or whatever is on our hearts. Thank you everyone for listening today. So meetings, our suggestion would be get yourself to a meeting. If you was to go to cocaineanonymous.org.uk, if you live in Britain, you'll get a list of face-to-face meetings that you can get to, where you've been made very, very welcome. There is lots of Zoom meetings now. In fact, there are hundreds and hundreds. We're part of a group called We Can Recover that meets twice a day, every day, 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. And you can see there the boxes in the pinky purple. And you just put in the Zoom ID number. There's no passcode. And you're very welcome to come along. You don't feel you need to put the camera on. Only about a quarter of participants put their camera on. You don't even need to talk if you don't want to. You come along and listen. You'll be very welcome. Conversely, if you want to share, that would be great. There's a list of some CA meetings. Remember, you can pause and rewind and play this video again. If you have any questions or comments, put them in the comment section and we'll try our best to get them answered. So there's lots of meetings. We'd suggest getting some of the literature, a book called Alcoholics Anonymous, or called The Big Book, and the 12 and 12, which you can read or listen to anytime, 24/7 at aa.org. That has been really good, fellas. Recovery is a wonderful thing, and sobriety, and that sense of purpose, connection, expression we get through the fellowship and this process. So is there anything you'd like to share in summation with our listeners, Eden?
Yeah, okay. So, we're talking about, step 10 is that, what do you get out of it by continuing to do it long term as a part of your recovery for the rest of your life? Okay, well, what you get out of it is, it says, quite a lot of us, we can't, when we're really, our lowest, we're coming into recovery because we know we have to, we can't effectively differentiate the truth from the false. And the step 10 inventory is a really good tool to help you to keep seeing the truth. And the truth is often a really, really good thing. So if you imagine that you're standing in a fabulous art gallery, okay, and it's got loads of pictures and it's huge, and in the middle of the wall of this art gallery, let's say somebody like one of the great masters like Monet has done a picture depicting, your life as it is. Okay, now if I'm standing too far away, miles away from that wall of pictures, I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking at. I don't know where my focus and my attention is supposed to be. If I'm standing right in front of that picture with my nose on the canvas, all I can see is a blobby mess. Whereas with a step 10 inventory, that helps me to stand in the sweet spot in front of that picture, depicting my life, which shows me what's going on for me. It shows me, what I'm supposed to be doing, where my attention is supposed to be put, what actions I need to take around things that are happening for me, where my attention needs to be, Who needs a little bit of love and tolerance from me, even if that's me? You know, and I can see all of that stuff, and I can really appreciate it. And it's like if you were standing in front of an amazing field full of tulips, right? You don't look at the dirt, do you? Right? So that's what the world gets from me today. The world gets from me, like me in my full, natural, vibrant person. You know, it gets that field of tulips. It doesn't matter to the world that what it's fertilized by is the pain and suffering and loss and hardship that I went through my addiction. It doesn't matter that that's fertilized by it. What the world gets from me is it gets a really good version of me today because I keep up with this stuff.
Beautiful.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Eden. Good stuff. Martin, come on in.
That was superb, Eden. I love that. You've provoked a thought in me, Eden, actually, when you stated about the resentment. So just in summary for myself, we all have, well, I do the inventory, and it's generally about, you know, I do the spot checks and the daily reviews in the evening. But one recurring resentment should just be honest and open, and not to make anybody feel uncomfortable, I hope not, is a resentment that I personally have was I was sexually abused as a child. And this resentment would carry on into my teenage years, and it was never spoke about type of thing. And then when using cocaine, I would be able to bring this topic of conversation up, but it was always a topic. It was always in my mindset and would provoke some of the negative feelings, such as anger and hate. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be the case for everybody who's listening, and there's things, you know, there's murders and things like that, which are, you know, just as bad, if not worse type of thing. So I'm not comparing as in this is worse than others. But what I'm trying to state is, though, if you can come to a position where I've managed to come to now, where I'm actually able to forgive the abuser, and reach that stabilizing point and field in my mindset where I'm thinking I'm actually felt sorry for the individual and sorry for his family and sorry for his children type of thing, I just feel calmer. I feel calmer than what that person did to me, that person, what he deserves this, and I want to do that. It was constant hate fueled in my mind and self-righteousness. And some people say, well, you were right to feel like that. Fair enough. Potentially I might have been. I wouldn't have argued with that. However, it wasn't doing me any good on a minute basis, an hour basis, a 24-hour basis, a weekly basis. It was doing me no good at all. It was stored up. I wasn't able to release that hate, and I wasn't able to be in the right mindset to do a self-appraisal and get past it in a mindset where I was able to live comfortably through this CA program, through Cocaine Anonymous, and the steps in particular. Step 10, where I'm able to look back over this particular topic. I'm able to look over my mind, my past mindset, how I've managed to be able to forgive the individual, which forgiving him helps me and makes me calm and helps me deal with my addiction a lot better. I'm not saying it's an easy thing by no stretch of the imagination, but forgiving is literally forgiving, and it can help and assist yourself. So there are other points in relation to the inventory that we need to take into consideration, like the fears and such. But some of the things that come back to you that keep reiterating in your mindset, deal with them as best you can to reach a peace, and you'll find you can assist yourself and then assist others, and a winning formula and a winning cycle can then come into your life's fruition, which is so I'll stop there. Thank you.
Well, that's just been amazing, and that's really, really well put, gentlemen. And you know, these are the kind of real things that we have to deal with. You know what I mean? Feelings, circumstances, history, terrible events, and more things, all kinds of things, really. And this is the joy we get, that we can see a little bit of light, even in awful things like that have happened to us, But, alcoholism's a terrible thing. Addiction's a terrible thing. And, there's always a solution. It's possible to get free and stay free and have a better future through the process of 12-step recovery. So we'd encourage you to come along to a meeting. We'll be uploading another podcast shortly. The next one is on step 11. So by all means, get into the literature, come along to meetings, stay connected. And thank you so much, Eden, for joining us today.
You're most welcome. And if you're listening to this, the very best of luck. I wish you all the good fortune and blessings in the world. And get to some meetings, and I look forward to meeting you on the Broad Highway.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Martin, thank you so much for being here again with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Eden. Absolutely beautiful. And just reiterate what Eden said. Come and join us in the meetings where you can hear these beautiful northern accents.
Good stuff. Epic. Okay, family. Until next time. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Ta-da!